Well, we thought that it would be a really fun addition to our email newsletter to do a kind of mini video podcast. So we want to talk about all things small business, about all things running a design studio, about all things branding, and we just thought this would be a really fun way to do it.
I think you just want to put me under extra stress and anxiety about constantly showing my face. I think that was your real plan.
I'm going to get you comfortable on camera. That's
I
my
think
goal
that's
of this situation.
the forcing. I mean, alcohol does help, and I think it was the only way it was going to happen, wasn't it?
It wouldn't be us if it wasn't a cheeky glass quiz, would it?
Oh, exactly.
So, this is our first one.
Yeah.
Our first ever foray into this, so I'm sorry in advance. But what are we talking about today?
We are talking about branding.
Branding.
Yes.
The importance of branding for smaller businesses.
Yeah.
It's just massive, isn't it? And I think
It's huge.
it's something that gets talked about a lot, maybe not so much in practical terms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and sometimes I feel like branding can be a little bit of an Instagram buzzword.
It's definitely a buzzword. And it's also, I feel like it's kind of gatekeeping a bit behind elitism. Like, it needs to be very expensive branding. It needs to go to like a branding agency. It needs to cost like thousands of pounds. And then it's just like a font.
Yeah, you see like these crazy sort of $1 million rebrands for companies like Coke and Pepsi, and you're like,
So jealous.
I mean, would you want to do that work?
Oh no. Yeah. I have seen those like booklets there.
They
And
do
they're
like the
mental.
brand guidelines, and there was one, and I'll put it on our stories after this goes out if it comes up. This is so funny. I think it's for Pepsi, and they have like the Vitruvian Man, the Da Vinci Vitruvian Man, and the kind of the location of the aisle compared to your eye line and stuff. And it's like, you guys are just making this up.
It was so extreme, as if like Coca-Cola was like absolutely like changing the world, and like and it kind of like went through evolution and all these things and like different places in the world, and then all of that went, and then Coca-Cola, and it was just a font still.
Yeah.
I was like, okay,
No, I couldn't agree more.
It was mental.
So I think when it comes to like smaller businesses, especially, branding to me is personality. It's like a way to quickly communicate the personality and the reputation of a brand, of a small brand.
Yes, but it isn't for you.
No.
It's not you as a person, it's you as your business, isn't
Correct.
it?
Yes. Yeah, it's not, this is something we talk about all the time, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
it's very tricky to kind of get through sometimes.
just because your favourite colour is pink does not mean that should be your business's brand colour.
Exactly, yeah.
Unless in our case. Obviously.
I mean, everything is pink.
Your hair colour,
my hair is colour.
website colour.
I was forced to have this hair colour. She was like, you better be on brand. So
I'm not having pink hair, you've got to be the one to do it.
Yeah.
I love that. I think it's just so important that it's based around what your customer needs, what your customer expects to see. Obviously, you can go against that, be a disruptor, as it were.
Yeah.
But it's really about.
But there's often
centering.
a reason why they've done that. There's a reason why builders' websites will kind of all look the same. There's a reason why corporate websites all look the same. It's because it's done by an employee. They just want to quickly find the information on a website. Mm-hmm. That's a particular website because that's more my expertise. But branding in general, there's a reason why certain colours mean certain things. So yes, I do think being a disruptor, being different is good to stand out, but you have to know
these things work for a reason. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know the rules in order to break the rules. That's the kind of classic
very smart
terminology, isn't it? And you're so right. I think people don't really grasp how unconscious our relationships to colours and fonts and styles is. They do mean stuff to us, even if it is stuff that the media has fed to us. Yeah, it's there. And it's, you're not going to undo that conditioning with one brand. So you're so right that people stick to the same thing because that formula actually does work.
Yes, yeah. And you can kind of piggyback off others' success from doing that, going, not necessarily copying their branding, but if it's very similar to, they'll instantly relate, go, oh, that's probably a bit like this, but they're a little bit, cheaper, or they do a bit more, or they're more local, that kind of logic, isn't it? So,
yeah, because it's about quickly communicating who you are, what you do, and your message. And if you are consistent with others in your industry, doesn't get better than that, does it?
So, Nay, what does branding include?
What a segue. What a segue.
I don't even have any notes. I did that on my own.
You were born for TV.
Oh my God.
So I think visual branding and overall branding are two different things that get colluded into one single asset. So our focus, obviously, creative beings that we are, is more on visual branding. So we work on brands' colour palettes, on their font choices. We work on how they look and why. You know, why we make those choices is rooted in that
and
kind of
feelings behind them. You know, and that comes into play with like animations and this, you know, and that's and having a very clear idea about what your branding should be kind of helps me as a design developer to go, oh, it should be bouncy because it's a fun brand. You know, and if not, it should be kind of smooth.
Yeah, you don't want sort of little icons bouncing all over the place for a corporate lawyer.
I'd
hire them.
Sold!
Yeah, exactly that. But then obviously there is branding in a wider sense, in a more marketing sense, which is more about reputation and customer feelings. And this is where a lot of that real complicated strategy starts coming in, which is why these massive agencies can get away with charging millions of pounds, because they have teams of experts in all of these specific areas.
Because I'm sure you've gone on those very corporate kind of branding days where it's like, so your company, what would be their favourite food? And you're like, what is happening?
It's
You know, I can see some of the logic behind it, but then sometimes I go, is that needed?
Yeah, but I think actually a lot of that stuff isn't needed for small businesses because we're already so personally connected to them. They haven't become this like giant conglomerate that needs to be personified.
It's not like over 100 employees that all have their different values and you're trying to get them to be aligned to one, you know. Generally it's just you, yourself and I, isn't it, to start with at least.
Or like a very small team that have bought into the vision that you have. Like, so that's the beauty, I think, of branding small businesses. Is that you can leave all the wanky stuff out of it because it is already so aligned. You already know what you're getting.
I mean, that's why we like working with small businesses anyway, because I just feel like it leaves out all the wanky stuff.
You're so right.
I don't want all these meetings. We've done it a few times where we've gone for more, you know, larger companies, and it's just been regrets.
Yeah, I know.
Just so many meetings with all the stakeholders, CEO, CTO. You're like,
all the bureaucracy and the red tape, and like, I don't want work to feel like, obviously you have days when work feels like work, but I don't want it to be a slog.
And
when you do projects like that, you're like, whoa, this is a slog.
This feels painful.
This is hurting me inside. I think one of the big, there's plenty of like reasons that small businesses need solid branding. It's like, we talk a lot about brand recognizability and trustworthiness, because having those things makes you look established. It makes you look like a proper business that's got the shit together, that knows what's going on. But there is actually more to it than that. Understanding what your values are and like the way that you like working stops you getting sucked into like nightmare clients, I think.
Yeah, no, that is a very, good point. One that I've fallen for, fallen victim to many times,
Because you and I have been freelancing before Lucky Night for years. So I was 25 when I started freelancing the first time, and you just don't know anything. It's crazy how little you know. And I think you're so thrilled that anyone would even think to work with you that you just let stuff go. And, you know, I've had loads of situations where I've been working with someone and I'm like, oh, they seem really enthusiastic, this is great, like I'm really happy, and then the goalposts move a little bit and you're like, oh, they're pushing their luck a little bit, but you know,
it'll be fine.
It'll be fine. They just, you know, maybe I wasn't clear enough about the rules, maybe I wasn't clear enough about this and that, and then the goalposts get moved again, and you're like, oh, they're not meaning to be difficult, it's just.
But then it feels like it's too far gone, isn't it? Because you've allowed all those, like, those changes, those edits, those, you know, things, and you haven't added on a price. Then it feels like 20 emails later for you then to say, oh, this is going to charge more. It's, it's tricky.
It is so tricky. And I think for young and small businesses, that is like the main reason to put effort into your branding. Because when you know your values and you stick to them, so you're not just like desperately grasping any work that comes your way, like know your values, know your mission and stick to it, you won't get sucked in by those people who, like in any situation in life, you get it with friends, you get it with colleagues, they know. They spot you a mile off and they go, this is a person who is easily swayed. This is a person who I can, you know.
Or they're in a position that they want this job enough that I can go, oh, there'll be lots of exposure or something ridiculous like that they kind of promise you at the end of this tunnel, isn't it? And then try and get it for cheaper, all those kind of things.
Has anyone ever tried to pay you an exposure? And anyone ever offered?
Yeah, I've had it a few times, like, oh, there'll be lots of like business that comes through this because I know lots of people and things like that. But
have you ever said yes to it?
No, because I was actually quite good. But at the same time, I've always been taken, not always, but I'm quite often taken for a ride because I'm like, oh, that sounds like a fun project. And then I kind of make it a bit cheaper because I do want to work on it. But then it like expands, it goes a bit too long. You know, it was not long ago I did one for a council and it was like some kind of animations and it was like zooming in. I was like, oh, that's absolutely my jam. I'd love to do it. And they're like, we've got a designer. I was like, oh, great, you know, let's do this. And then the designs came through and it was just so ugly. And I was so sad because like the animation bit was great, but I could never feel like I could show it or like put it in my portfolio because it was just so ugly. And I was like, I really wish I'd kind of pushed and said, no, you know, we need to handle the designs, we need to do. But it was, and it was the same thing of bureaucracy of just lots of meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah, so. And it's like you say, once that ball is rolling, how do you put it back in? Like, how do you... That train's on the track. It's going. Yeah. Like, at what point do you get in front of it? I mean, unless you're crystal clear from the start, which you never will be unless you've got your brand like 100% set. You've got your values, your mission, your brand statement. All of that is like tip top. Until you've done that, how can you go in from the offset and say, like, no, this is how I do things. This is what I want. These
are my rules. This is how I work, and this is how we are doing this project going forward. Which is Have you ever done anything for free for exposure?
I hate this story, but I did some work for a local business about 6 years ago. And it was a nightmare. Like, he was such a nice guy at first, and like,
it's always the way.
I really felt like he had this kind of like eco mission, and I was like, wow, nice, brilliant. It was total greenwashing, and I didn't get to the bottom of that until like halfway through, and I was absolutely furious about that. But again, that train was on the track. What can I do? It's done now. But and then. Honestly, it must have been about 150 hours of work in the end, like over the course of like 6 weeks.
Oh, God.
And he only ever paid me half. And I already had charged so low.
Yeah.
But I was like 20, 25, 20, maybe like 27 when I did that. I'd been freelancing on and off for about 2 years. Like, when I say on and off, I mean with gaps of like 8 months in between projects.
Yeah.
I had no contract. I had like nothing signed. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just operating under my own name.
Yeah.
There was like nothing.
There's nothing. But I think even if you have a contract with small businesses, it's very hard to enforce. You know? It's just, it's...
But at least it covers your back. And I think, when I say he only paid me half, he probably only paid me half of like 300 quid because that was what I would have charged back then. So it's not like a small claims court matter. But at least when you are a bit more established and you're charging a more reasonable amount of money, having that contract, God forbid anything goes wrong.
Yeah. And I think if you're charging a good amount of money as well, people respect you more for it.
100%.
Because you're like, don't waste my time because it's valuable, and it's hard to get there. I definitely started doing free work, to 100%. Get that kind of, but that was more for me to learn. I did charity work, not free. I did charity. So.
I don't actually think there's anything wrong with that. If it's your choice and it's you're comfortable with that, and like you say, you go into it, I'm doing this because I want to learn, not I'm doing this because I feel like I'm not worth any money.
Yes, yeah.
I think that's fine.
Yeah. And I didn't have the skills then. Yeah. I could learn it on my own, or I could be like, I'll give you this for free, and I've got a project to do, and I'll learn the skills. Yeah. But once I'd had learned them, I was like, okay, and now I am worth it, and now I'm definitely worth it.
Now I'm worth it, baby. I'll kind of wrap this little chat up a bit, I think, by saying the proof is in the pudding, because we have not had a single bad client since starting Lucky Night.
Because we killed them. Cut.
I love it. Well, but I will say, our clientele at Lucky Night are
fabulous.
Aren't they just the absolute best?
Well, they have to put up with both of us gaggling and laughing. So I think that kind
the witchy cackles over every Zoom meeting.
Vetoes out a lot of that. They're like, okay, thanks guys.
We only have a a 2% conversion rate on our discovery calls.
Yeah, they all come there and go, that's mental. Okay, bye.
No, we've actually, this is not a brag, this is to say how easy it can be when you get your branding and your sort of vision and stuff right. We have never been turned down from a discovery call. So we've never had a discovery call with someone that hasn't turned into a project.
No.
And we have never had a poor client relationship, not even a misunderstanding.
And we've done the opposite. We did have a discovery call that we went, that's not for us.
Oh, we've turned this
very good, yeah.
Very mature, very responsible.
Well, we learned many lessons the hard way for many years. So
yeah. So
we'll get there.
Moral of the story, get your branding on check.
Oh, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, and life will get easier. Cheers, babe. Cheers!